Welcome to another episode of the Distil-Nation NZ podcast. My name's Tom. I'm the owner of distillery of Herrick Creek here in town.
And I'm Cameron with Discovering Drams, Spirits Tastings and Experiences.
Yeah, and we're here to spread New Zealand spirits and have a chat and see what's going on in the industry. And this episode we had the absolute pleasure of talking to Antony over at Divergence Whisky here in Christchurch. And it was a chat. It was a really good chat, eh?
Sincere thanks to Antony. He was open. Keep listening because there is a sneak peek at a release that will be coming out soon. And he was very generous to give us a sample of that release before it came out.
Yeah, I don't think there's been much talked about it. So definitely have a listen. Get excited about that new release. And we're just going to leave it totally unedited. And you can have a listen to it. So enjoy.
Cheers.
All right, so we're going to continue our conversation with we've talked previously about Curiosity, and now we're going to talk about Divergence, because you split the two brands down the middle, right?
Yes. Well, I don't know about split down the middle, but they are our two brands. We sort of we figured that the gin consumer is probably a different profile from the whiskey consumer, and that making a Curiosity whiskey probably wasn't going to build on the Curiosity brand, so we looked to develop a new brand for the whiskey, and Divergence. The idea of Divergence was it's trying to speak to the fact that we do things a little bit differently from traditional Northern Hemisphere, well, in single malt terms, Scotch probably.
Yeah.
Generally we're trying to make a whiskey that has a lot of flavour. We're trying to develop flavour quickly because we're a new distillery, so we're using small barrels. We're trying to showcase our local barley flavours. Barley grown in Canterbury, best barley in the world. We're trying to showcase the best barley in the world in our whiskey. And Divergence also talks to our environment. We live on the plains of Canterbury, where we have these amazing branching
the braided
rivers,
yeah.
And so our story is we're a branch of the whiskey, a river of whiskey. We're a branch of the braid that just goes off and meanders through the plains slightly differently.
Very poetic.
From the rest of the whiskey world.
Yeah.
That's painted a beautiful picture.
It is, yeah. Actually, I'm seeing it too. I don't know if you're seeing it, but I'm seeing it. Yeah.
So is that kind of the role that you hope, if there is a regionality, that's kind of it, that it sits as part of this picture of the landscape?
I think, I mean, that's how we like to picture ourselves and how we like to place ourselves. I mean, I think it's interesting for New Zealand whiskey producers to work out what the New Zealand whiskey brand is and how we're all going to fit into that, because generally, globally, whiskies tend to be about the country they're from. Traditionally, that's and what is the New Zealand whiskey? What's the brand of New Zealand whiskey going to end up being? I mean, it's such a young industry. We're all trying to work out what our own brands are and then somehow fit that around a New Zealand brand. And at this point, our idea around that is to try and marry the story of the landscape into our whiskey. Yeah.
So, shall we start with the Virgin French Oak?
We should start with the Virgin French Oak.
That's where you started,
This is
right?
where we started, yep.
Thank you.
So, Virgin French Oak. Obviously, the clue is in the name. These are new French Oak barrels. Generally, we're using new wood. Delivers a lot of oak flavours into the whiskey. We're using French oak, which delivers a lot of chocolate and toffee flavour in the whiskey. And we're using small barrels, so the age profile is quite a lot more flavourful than you might expect from, in this case, 4.5 years in barrel. 50 and 100 litre barrels, around about a 50-50 mix of the two in the bottle.
So why that conscious decision to go? Well, because I imagine it would be easier to go for some of those ex-American oak barrels. There might be more of them on the market.
Certainly cheaper.
Yeah. So why go for the Virgin French Oak?
For that reason, to try and develop flavour quickly, so that we're putting a flavourful whiskey in the market at a younger age.
I think those younger aged whiskies, which I'm on that same, I do the same thing. It really showcases the grain alcohol behind it, which I quite like, and I can smell it in here. The barley's quite evident.
Yeah, the malt is really strong in there.
Yeah.
There's this lovely anisey character to we find in the Canterbury barley that really comes through in more probably on the palate than on the nose, but this lovely spiciness. And then French oak, because again it's a bit different. It's not classically single malt to be in French oak, although before everyone started using bourbon barrels, they all used French wine barrels. So it's also maybe a hark back to the old days, but new barrels, French oak, and small barrels is really the story of this whiskey, and it's about driving flavour.
There's a ton of it.
Yeah, it's certainly, that nose isn't shy. It's a big hit of vanillins and toffee, and some of that chocolatiness sitting underneath that. It's bold, but not in a raw or punchy kind of sense. It's just...
Yeah, there's that little spice, like you sort of say.
Yeah.
But it's not a punchy spice or anything. You're not going knocked back by it or anything, which is great. And you can even see it just in the colour of the whiskey itself. You can really see it, how much it's extracted from the barrel.
Oh yeah, new barrels, that sort of colour develops really quickly.
Yeah.
In a new barrel, you'll get that sort of colour in
months,
6 to 12 months.
Yeah.
Easy. Looks like a 20-year-old Scotch after 3 months. And the other side of the aging here is where we are. It's Canterbury. We have nor'westers and it'll be 30 degrees. It'll change to a nor'easter and it'll be 15 degrees. And it'll happen day after day.
Yeah.
And that's all of that temperature cycling in the barrel is all just driving flavour into the whiskey.
Yeah, we've talked about that. Like New Zealand is just, it's not Scotland, it's not cold all the time. It's not America where it's just hot all the time.
Yeah.
It really is sort of in between, isn't it? And it's really extreme as well.
And in particular here, we have a weird mix of a continental climate and maritime climate.
Yes.
Because we have the nor'westers coming over the Alps and just losing all their humidity and heating up, and then we have the nor'easter coming in the afternoon as a sea breeze that's moist and cold, and it's it's great. It's horrible to live in, but it's great to age whiskey.
Let's be. Horrible.
On a general summer's day in Christchurch, where the water off summer is 15 degrees.
That's fair. That's definitely. I got to say too, the branding on the new branding you've done is just awesome. I love. One thing I said when you first came up with these new labels is I just love how the colours match. It matches the whiskey colour perfectly, and I'm just like
the copper foil in there, and it's a nice copper.
It's world class.
Nice
like that.
brown copper.
That's beautiful.
Thank you.
And this is the main offering, is it?
Yep. Virgin French Oak is our sort of every day. This is what we'll always have.
Yep.
So this is our sort of our not everyday whiskey, but our sort of core whiskey, I guess.
Yes.
If you like.
Going back to your beginnings and talking about very much learning on the job, do you see as your story is certainly not unique in people coming to distilling and wanting to know more? Do you see it as more of an asset or a challenge for New Zealand in general that we don't have this legacy of distillers to look back on?
Oh, I think it's both an asset and a challenge. I think we don't have a history of tradition that we are bound by. But we also don't have a history of opportunities for people to learn at the feet of the masters, right? So, people can go overseas and learn how the Scots do it, come back and bring people here to teach. But that's not the same as living and breathing that industry around a town that's grown up around a distillery. It's not Lynchburg, Tennessee, or I don't know what the town next to Glenlivet is, but whatever that is. So we don't have the that deep knowledge that's just in our community. We don't have the bits and pieces that grow up around distilleries like cooperages, for example, and large barrel stores and independent bottlers that can buy our spirit off us when it's young. We don't have that whole community that lives around whiskey in other places. But what we do have is the opportunity then to do things differently and to make divergences and think about it in our own way.
He said it.
And and think about it in our own way and deliver our own flavour profiles and types of whiskey that can grow to be the New Zealand whiskey or a New Zealand whiskey industry. And we'll develop our own ways of coopering barrels and our own ways of finding ways of monetising our new make spirit. That's an opportunity for us in New Zealand that other people don't have. So,
because I was just in Tasmania a couple of weeks ago, and they have cooperages and independent bottlers and whatnot, and they're even feeding each other, low wines and stuff like that, and I just couldn't believe how much intermingling actually was going on in little Tasmania. And they're so close to us. So
it's an amazing industry over there. What's built out of one man's dream, I guess. If you think about Bill Lark's sort of getting the laws changed so he could make whiskey, and then Sullivan's Cove winning world's best single malt, and then the whole thing just explodes from that. So it's not too many small things that have to happen to enable that sort of massive development of a whiskey culture. And the Tasmanian whiskey culture is different. It's its own. It is its own. It's hopefully we develop one of our own as well.
I remember talking to you at the 2020 Dramfest, which was probably the last big event before the country and the world shut down.
That's right.
And I think even then you were saying, we were meant to have, I think it was these bottles. We were meant to have these, but there's something happening in China at the moment and they weren't able to get them out in time. We've had to make do. So going from 2020, where you're making do with the labels that you weren't quite happy with.
Printed on the desktop.
Yeah, and bottles that you weren't, again, this isn't what you wanted.
In the distillery,
to then coming to the 2023 Dramfest, where you're releasing, I think the big one was, we've got 5-year-old.
In the bottle,
what kind of... I think what changes have you seen both for Divergence, but also to people's reactions to Divergence?
I think it's people aren't so surprised that there's New Zealand single malt whiskey in bottles. I mean, Thompson's been around a while, and a lot of people know about Cardrona, but seeing other brands come along and help grow that sort of ecosystem in the New Zealand industry, that's made a big difference. People are much more. I think it was different with gin. I think you asked me earlier whether gin, it was hard to get people to try a New Zealand gin because it was New Zealand gin. Whiskey, and it wasn't, right? Gin people were interested in trying a New Zealand gin. Whiskey people, on the other hand, are a lot more set in their ways, right?
More snobby than gin consumers?
I've never had a gin consumer say, I only drink Tanqueray 10 and nothing else. But I've had a lot of whiskey guys come up to me and say, I only drink 15-year-old and nothing ever. I never buy anything younger than 15, or I never buy anything younger than 20. I'm the coolest. And so I'm not even going to bother trying your beautiful gold medal winning 4.5-year-old whiskey because it can't be any good. That has never happened with gin. But there are a lot of people who know a lot about whiskey, or think they know.
I was going to think they know.
I was going to let you say it, but you didn't.
No. I think I know a lot.
And whiskey's just as dynamic as gin, just as different as gin. There's just as many opportunities to do things in different ways as gin, and there's no reason to only buy 20-year-old Scotch. because there's just so much bigger world out there of flavours that you're missing out on if you do that.
It's one thing to say, like, I'm a fan of my daily drinker, and it happens to be a 20-year-old Scotch.
Yeah.
But I'm happy to try anything else, you know.
Yeah.
But if you're just saying 20 years or older and nothing else, like, that's just, I don't know. That's a different mindset, isn't it?
Yeah. And and the other one is you get a lot of people who, I'm not paying $100 and whatever for a bottle of New Zealand whiskey when I can buy a bottle of 20-year-old Scotch for, I don't know, the same amount of money, or my daily drinker is a Chivas and I only spend $40 on that, so why would I be interested in yours?
Yeah, that's probably more common. Yeah.
It is a tough market to really push into, isn't it?
And then there's, we're making a single malt, so we have a market of people who believe they know what single malt is, but there's a whole other whiskey market that drinks bourbon.
Yep.
And never the twain shall meet. It's an interesting set of groupings of people, and whiskey seems to have these little cliques that gin doesn't seem to have. It makes it a little more difficult to.
It is true. You don't see somebody being like, I only drink Navy strength gin, or I only drink contemporary gin. It's not like that. I only drink barrel aged gin.
You do get I only drink pink gin. Though.
Oh, okay, right. I can see that.
Yeah, that does not surprise
But that's a
me
different thing altogether.
Yeah. But I think with your, the way you're doing it here and the way you're extracting the flavor out of the barrels, with new barrels and stuff, it is almost a bridge between bourbon and single malt, isn't it?
Yeah, I think people come to me and say that they are bourbon drinkers and, do I have something that's like bourbon? Well, really, I don't have anything that's like bourbon. But what I do have is I have sort of the intensity of flavour of bourbon, and I have the new oak sort of what the new oak brings to bourbon, because I have new oak and I have intensely flavoured whiskies. And quite often they're quite surprised by trying a single malt that gives them some of those things.
Yeah. I think it's that sort of notion that everyone compares it back to Scotland, and Scotch, and they're expecting that light and fruity and what you get from, or just heavily smoked or something like that, So it is.
That's the third click.
It's got to be smoked or nothing, or I won't touch any smoke. Yeah.
Have you got anything peated? No, see ya.
Oh dear. All right. That was funny you talk about the bourbon drinkers, because I sent a bottle of the Virgin French Oak over to a friend of mine in Illinois, and he then brought that out for some of his bourbon drinking friends, and they were all very intrigued and very impressed, and thought, there was something for them, even though it's certainly not bourbon in style, but there were flavours in there that they could recognise and think, okay, this isn't so far out of the norm.
I think that wood-driven profile, the spiciness of it, gives it a little rye sort of thing going on in there. It's really quite cool.
Yeah.
Here we go. I think the proof is in the pudding. We're at 3 gold medals for Virgin French Oak now. San Francisco World Spirits Competition, New Zealand Whisky Awards, and the New Zealand Spirits Awards.
Congratulations.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, I know that this next one is very much a departure from.
So this is our latest bottling. It's called Iberia Double Wood.
Mm-hmm.
It's a limited release. It's a bottling of, I think, 3 ex-Pedro Jimenez sherry barrels, cut down barrels to 100 litres and re-charred, and 1 ex-Tawny port barrel. So hence the name Iberian, because there's Spanish barrels and Portuguese barrels added together. Lots of rich fruits from the Spanish sherry, the Pedro, lots of sort of lighter fruits from the Tawny port, and then those spicy notes from that barley, the Canterbury barley, that Anisi spice. And for me, I just get one tasting note for this, which is brandy-soaked Christmas fruitcake.
100%.
Most definitely.
That's it. Yeah.
Where did you go to get the barrels cut down? How much of a process was that?
We found a small cooperage in Portugal that we asked to do it for us, and they were previously cutting down barrels to 100 litre size anyway, but the thing that was new for them that we asked them to do was re-char those barrels.
Okay.
So previously they'd cut down barrels and remade them into 100 litre size barrels from old Pedro barrels and old port barrels, but what they hadn't done before was re-char them for spirits. So that was a new process for them that we asked them to do for us.
What's the benefit for them charring it here versus you charring it here?
The benefit wasn't for them, the benefit was for us. We didn't know how to do it ourselves at the time, we'd never knocked the end out of a barrel previously, so this was pretty early on in our development. And I said earlier, no cooperages in New Zealand, so we didn't know anyone who could do it for us, so we got them to do it while they were building the barrel.
I think that's another discussion we've had, that it's great that Pōkeno has got their own cooperage, and that's good for them. They're doing some bunch of experimental stuff, but where's the contract cooperage? Where's something that's actually going to help other...
We've talked about it as an industry, about whether there's an opportunity to set up or to help set up a cooperage in New Zealand to help the spirits industry. I think there's probably not the critical mass yet of people here that would make it worthwhile doing.
I did tell the boys over in Tasmania, because obviously the one in Hobart just recently went through some turbulence. I think they're looking at setting that back up again. But I did say, if any of you guys want to hop over to New Zealand, there's an opportunity for you guys. So
yeah. I mean, the Tasmanians have a huge benefit in that they have they used to have a massive fortified wine industry in South Australia that they could pull lots of barrels out of, and that was really the basis for world's best single malt whiskey for Sullivan's Cove, for example, but also for Lark's small barrels and all those port and sherry barrels that they pulled out of South Australia and turned into spirits barrels in Tasmania. That was a huge benefit for them. That we don't have that here, so we don't have those barrels to call on. We have a bunch of table wine barrels, which are really nice. I mean, we're doing quite a bit with table wine barrels these days, and the flavours that are developing in the whiskey are beautiful. But we're still a couple of years away from putting those into the bottle mostly, so we're a little bit behind the development stage there.
do you think if there was a supply of barrels and somebody making them, do you think maybe that would increase the demand as well if there's supply already? Because obviously right now somebody looks at it, they think there's no barrels, I'm not going to do it, but if there was barrels,
potentially it's a little bit of a cost thing. You know, if you had a cooperage here, you could import staves and remake bourbon barrels here and make them good instead of the crappy ones we tend to get that come in containers and get overheated and dry out and fall apart before they reach you, and then when you try and rehydrate them, they don't hold water, and so I think there's an opportunity, but I think it's probably too small to at the moment. Might develop. We just need one of the New Zealand distilleries to win world's best single malt, and then
I'm sure it's not far off. That's going to happen.
Can't be. So it's good to hear that you're getting some cooperation with local wineries, but I remember you telling me that you wanted to get a port barrel and were just hard out of luck.
We actually managed to get 2 from Terrace Edge in Hawke's Bay.
Oh.
And we are about to bottle a whiskey for the Burnham Army Officers Mess that's come out of that barrel, and it's bloody nice. It's one of those barrels, I should say.
Oh, cool.
So but 2 barrels is all I've been able to manage to find New Zealand port barrels. Most of the fortified winemakers, obviously, they hold on to their barrels and they just use them until they fall apart, pretty much. So they don't, and there aren't that many in New Zealand, so there aren't that many barrels coming out of those guys. In fact, as far as I know, none. I know Matt Thompson's been talking to the guy, the fortified wine guys in North Auckland ever since he started, and as far as I know, never got a barrel out of any of them. So what we've started doing now is getting, what we have done, being able to do is buy sherry and port, base sherry and port from the fortified wine makers in bulk, and then put it in our own barrels to condition. They call it in Scotland, condition the barrels as sherry barrels and port barrels, so that we can develop our own New Zealand port and sherry barrels.
The finish on that Iberia double wood is just, it won't go away. It's just sitting there, that beautiful, spicy kind of boozy fruitcake.
I love it.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, candied dark fruit, like it just sits there, right?
Lingering red berries and vanilla chantilly cream is what I say on my tasting note on the back of the bottle.
Yeah,
It's,
yeah,
yeah.
I can certainly appreciate
It's
that.
incredibly thick, you know. It's
I'm having some more.
Everybody needs a bit.
Go on then. Go on. Thank you. So taking a bit of a pivot, looking at how you can differentiate Divergence from other whisky distilleries in New Zealand, tell us about starting the Divergence Whisky Society.
Yeah, we started the Divergence Whisky Society as an idea to try and get a group of people who are obviously interested in our whisky to keep communicating with them, just really to keep communicating with them, offer them special deals, offer them new releases early, things that no one else can buy, just to keep them engaged. Really, it's an engagement model, I suppose. It's modern social media marketing, right? but you want people who are interested in. We want to be engaged with those people. People like you who are keen to see all the new releases. It's the best way for us to directly talk to those people is to have a group of them together, and ways to keep them engaged. Things like bottling or barreling a special whiskey just for the Divergence Whisky Society, asking them what new make they want in it, making that new make. We've never made a peated new make before, and they wanted a peated new make, so we've made a peated new make, and we've put it into the barrel they wanted, which was a charred ex-Pinot barrel, I think. And I have tasted that whiskey at like 8 months in the barrel, and I would put it in a bottle now and call it whiskey. It's beautiful. So it's really interesting to get that sort of, because you get the feedback as well. It's not just us telling you guys things, it's the feedback comes back from the people who really are interested and like to think care about us and our brand. So we get some of that feedback back from them, and it's a nice.
Whiskey drinkers can be incredibly loyal, so I think once you have that band of supporters on board, it's great to see them coming back and give them some options.
But it's also nice not to get an email, either for the sake of sending out an email, or to say, hey, we've got casks for sale, buy an investment cask. There's something more to it than that, and I think that you've actually got to offer something.
Yeah, I mean we don't want to overshare, but I think maybe we have engaged less than we should have in the last few months. Partly that's been just the situation of the business and where we're at and what's going on in it, but partly also because we didn't have a lot to offer. So. But there'll be things coming up for Christmas, exciting new releases even.
Ooh.
Which
sounds like a bit of a leeway.
Might get to. It sounds like a segue, doesn't it?
That did sound like a segue.
It was a segue.
Towards the end of most recent Dramfest on the Sunday, when my friend and I had realised that we had reached our limit and we needed to slow down, we made a game of how many pins, badges could we collect from the different distilleries around the place, and it was great. So heaps from of course the Americans had them in spades, and quite a few from Scotch distilleries as well. But no, on my Dramfest lanyard, proudly, there's the Divergence one there as well. So
Nice.
that was
Well done.
nice to have that New Zealand representation
Congratulations.
in the merch that we got.
Yeah, we're out of those pins now. We should probably get some more made. They're quite cool. I like them.
Especially for people who, the collectors of those type of whiskey paraphernalia, those pins, they collect them. And
They are very
do you have this one?
they are
Oh, you
very
don't have this one? Oh, I've got that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The our most successful ever promotion with Divergence was when we had a bunch of hip flasks, stainless steel hip flasks with Divergence on them, and we were giving those away with purchases, and they
would be
went
great.
off. They went crazy. So,
Can we expect to
was
see a
great.
return for that for Christmas?
I'd like, well, probably not for Christmas, but we'll do it again. It's just a matter of getting our A's, A to Z's sorted out. But yes, it's on the list.
A into G.
It's always a discussion with Jack about what's the next thing we could get branded with Divergence that would make a difference for a whiskey drinker. And the last thing we had were those rocks, you know, and I'm very sceptical about whiskey rocks, but people liked them.
They do like
and they're
them.
a cool idea, and they look neat. So yeah, they went quite well.
Socks for next Father's
Socks. I have thought about socks. Yeah, I've thought about socks. Jack wants to do like a glass water dripper thing, you know, where you put it in the thing and hold the end and then use your thumb to drip water in.
I've seen them. I've seen or custom ones being made. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
But special releases.
Releases.
What
So
have you got?
there is one special release that we are that we do annually, which is our slow gin barrel finished whiskey, and it's time to bottle our third one. So this is the 2023 version of the slow gin barrel finished whiskey, and I know it's a special favourite of yours.
It really is.
It's so we believe pretty much unique in the whiskey world. As far as we know,
It's gotta be, yeah.
as far as we know, we're the only people in the world who commercially make slow gin in barrels anyway. So as far as having slow gin barrels available to use, we may well be the only people in the world who have that opportunity. And then, we're taking those barrels, we're finishing for 12 months in the slow gin barrel. So we're taking a whiskey that, to start with, has been in virgin French oak, and then putting it in the slow gin barrel for 12 months at the end. So we have those really deep chocolate, toffee, malty things from the little spice from virgin French oak, and then on top of that, from the slow gin barrel, plum, marzipan, nuttiness. And then we're bottling it at cask strength, so you get every little tiny bit of flavour that you possibly can out of it. Yeah. There is no flavour left behind, and it's like we're like the Marines. No flavour left behind.
I don't know if you can put that on the label, but
We should put no flavour left
no
behind.
flavour. No flavour left
Actually,
behind.
that's a good idea.
That one you could.
I love that nose. Wow.
Oh yes.
So this new one is going to be 63.5.
Okay.
It's an interesting thing. We've found that aging here, the Angel share is more water than alcohol.
Okay.
So we're getting an increase in alcohol in our barrels almost universally across all of our whiskies. So we're putting it into the barrel at 62.5, and this one has come out at 63.5. This is 6 years old. This was distilled in April 2017. Some of the first.
That was 1 month after I moved to New Zealand.
Hey,
There you go.
there you go.
The bottle and
Some of the first whiskey spirit that we had, distilled in the Kenny Beverages stills, in the Laurie stills, and then aged for 3 years in new French oak, and actually new Bulgarian oak as well. So it's a blend of Bulgarian and French. And then after 3 years, we figured they had enough new oak character, so we actually put them into ex-Pinot barrels. and then a year ago we put them into the we picked them for the next slow gin barrel release, so we put them into the slow gin barrel for a year to just add an extra layer of delicious flavour profile onto it.
The flavour on that, I mean, wow.
See, your first release of this came at a time when I was really pushing for cask strength, really wanting more cask strength on my shelf. And it's certainly what you couldn't find a whole lot of New Zealand cask strength whiskies. There just weren't a whole lot out there on the market. So first off, all I saw was New Zealand cask strength, and I thought, right, okay, I'm gonna have that. And then opening up that bottle, and it was just, you're right, there is no flavour left behind. There is so much, and it's waxy, and it coats the tongue, and it lingers, and it is just full on fruit flavour.
Full on fruit and dark chocolate.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
The finish is just so long, and it's just like Whitaker's 80% just sitting on the back of
exactly that,
sitting on the back of your tongue.
It's a touch
forever.
tannic.
It never goes away.
A touch tannic, like it makes you think of of that really dark chocolate, but it is just. And in another anecdote, I had a bunch of friends over, and I brought out a few bottles and was like, hey, have whatever you like. And this guy, he filled up the entire bulb of the Glencairn with the
Goodness.
yeah. And I said to him, mate, look, you might
Was that for everybody?
you might want to put some of that back. And he had a go at me. He's like, don't bring your bottles out and then tell us we can't have it. It's like, no, that's not that at all. I just need you to know this one is 61 point something or other. So just take it easy. And he said, I know what I'm about. Don't tell me what I can and can't. Yeah, so me and the other mates had to carry him to his Uber. Yeah.
Yep, 100 and whatever mils of 60+% is a lot of standard drinks.
Yes.
Yep.
And I tried to warn him. But it is deceptive, because when you put your nose in, it's not an aggressive, alcohol-forward nose.
But
I mean,
it's big and it is round.
Oh,
and
yes.
you can just sit there and smell it, and then you just take a sip and you can sit there and let it mellow away. That's just.
I mean, you can tell the strength is there on that first sip.
But it's not no throwing me against the wall at all.
No.
It's hot. I mean, it's 60%. It's hot, but
yeah.
it's not
Yeah.
cask strength. It's,
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's there, but it's not really. Doesn't really kill you like some can.
Chocolate, raisin, plum. But we had, growing up, we had plum trees, and so we always had this surplus of plums, and we'd make plum jam, and so for me, I get, that real richness and sweetness of the plum jam coming through.
Yeah.
That is definitely one you just sit there and you let it sit and you can just hang out in front of the fireplace at Christmas time, sort of thing.
Why are you lighting your fire at Christmas time?
Well, I'm Canadian, so I'm used to that.
So when is this going to be released? When
So
is
this will
coming
be
out?
it'll be bottled in October, and it'll be released before the end of October. It'll be in shops early November, and it'll be available from us. It'll be available to the Whisky Society first, which will be before the end of October.
So if listeners want to join the very exclusive Divergence Whisky Society, what do they need to do?
Just get online on our website, divergencewhisky.nz, and you'll find a form at the bottom of the page to join the Whisky Society. Just fill out the form, and we will start sending you our very useful marketing emails. And one of which will say, get on board with the first chance to pre-order your slow gin barrel finished. The 2023 version is coming up.
You don't send out that many emails, do you?
No, it's not even one a month. It's very few. But like
so don't worry about getting spammed, everybody.
No,
You're getting spammed.
we're not going to spam you. You won't get any emails that don't give you some interesting or useful information. I promise.
I think there was a previous. I think it was when the Iberian. Was it the Iberian double wood, or was it the 5-year-old that we're being part of the society? If you bought the 5-year-old, you also got a wee sample bottle with a cask strength release. Or
yes, we had bought a bottle of 5 at 46, and we had 200 ml bottles of 5 at cask strength that the Whisky Society members got a free one if they bought a bottle of 5. So
I did that.
Was a pretty cool.
That's a pretty good deal.
It's a pretty cool deal, I thought. Bit over the top, actually. Now I think about it, I should have made you pay something.
Well, we're part of we've got the secret handshake and everything.
Yeah.
But I think coming back to one of your points about, if I can buy a 10-year-old, 12-year-old Scotch or whatever for X amount, and why would I get a New Zealand single malt? I think for me it comes back to, how else is this industry going to grow if we're not supporting it at a grassroots level? How can we expect New Zealand distilleries to,
Yeah, but we're not looking for charity either. We want you to buy it because you love it.
But it is good and it is different. It is something else.
I think for me, that's the key thing. You want to try something that's not what you're used to, that's different, that speaks about where you are and where you come from and where your local distillery is, or an Auckland distillery or a Waihi distillery or a Wanaka distillery. They're all producing something fabulous, they're all producing something different, and we're all trying to build an industry that speaks about New Zealand and New Zealand whiskey. So that's and Rangiora.
Yeah,
of course.
No, I think it is all about that, and I think people just need to understand that New Zealand whiskey is different, but it's good. It's different, and you just need to open your mind to it. It's not going to be what you've previously drank elsewhere, but open your mind to what it could be, and just come in with a blank slate and enjoy what it is.
I don't think any of us are making whiskey that's different just for the sake of being different either. Yeah. We're making whiskey that we think will be fabulous, and that we hope everybody else loves.
Yeah.
And there are certain things we're doing that are different to achieve that. I'm sure the Scots could make fantastic 3-year-old whiskey, and I'm sure some of them do. Yeah. But it's not what they set out to do. They set out to make whiskies that are going to age well and going to sit around for 20 years in the cold Scottish climate and going to produce great whiskies then. Well, we're not trying to do that. We're trying to set out to make whiskies that are going to be delicious at 4 years old, 5 years old, that are delivering a flavour profile that is different and interesting, that you might grow to love, that you might become the whiskey that you drink every night.
Yeah, we've got the grain, we've got the water. Yeah, we've got it all. Yeah,
I don't know if the know-how. That's a great sentiment to get out on. Tom, do you have the final question for Antony?
What are you excited for then about Divergence going forward?
About Divergence going forward?
Even if it's not this year, maybe next year, maybe 10 years?
It's growth. It's we make all our whiskey, and I'm sure you'll see on your video at some point our little 500 litre still that we're making all our whiskey on. My excitement for Divergence is the opportunity to grow the brand to the point where we can build a real a whiskey distillery with capacity to turn this into something that is, at the moment it does enough, but it's not scalable as we sit. So we need to get to a point where we have a whiskey that is thought well enough of and bought enough that we can put together a distillery that can produce that product at a larger scale and take it to the world. That's what we want to do.
I love that. I think I've heard this from a couple people that there's a sentiment around that there should be a distillery collective almost, a place where centralized, where there's big enough equipment that people can buy your time there at the distillery and they go do their thing, sort of thing. I mean, what do you think of that idea? Because I've heard this from a few people now, and at first I didn't understand it, but the more and more I think about it, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, to a certain extent, that's not a lot different from being an independent bottler and buying a new make from someone. I think it would be. I mean, I haven't actually heard about
Yeah.
a
It's
sort of
basically,
a distillery that's basically a contract manufacturing site that just contracts to other
Almost
distilleries or other distillers to come in.
If you think of it like Fonterra as a cooperative, a distillery cooperative where you all own the equipment and you all get to go use it, sort of thing, on your own terms. But at first I sort of pushed it out of my mind, but the more people that talk to me about it, I sort of think maybe it's not a terrible idea, but I don't know exactly how it would work, but it's an interesting idea for little New Zealand to have a scalability idea.
I think Christchurch is the perfect place for it. We've got the grain, we've got the water, we've got the land to put it on. It's there's potentially an opportunity there for something.
All you investors out there, come on down to Christchurch. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
No, well, if there's anything that we're going to get out of here on, it's that Christchurch and New Zealand whisky, and New Zealand whisky being made in Christchurch has absolutely got a lot of potential. So, cheers, Antony. Cheers to you.
Cheers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Nice to talk to you.
So Antony was a great guest, and it was really nice of him to invite us to the distillery. We got to do the tour, really. I mean, he showed us the whole area as we would have talked about, and the whiskey, so good.
I love it, and it was really an awakening for me. The first time that he released the cask strength whiskey that was certainly within a price bracket that I could justify and afford to pay. And I'm like, but this is so unique and so different. And I felt, I've got no ownership at all, absolutely none. But I felt this sense of ownership and pride, like I'm from Christchurch, this is from Christchurch, this is some, like, just hands down great whiskey. And I love it. And so, I do feel a real sense of hometown pride when I talk about Divergence. It is. It's
our local whiskey, isn't it? I mean, there's only really one single malt whiskey in Christchurch, and it is Divergence Whisky, right? So, and it's so good. I mean, what they're doing with it is really, I'm going to use a new word, Andalusian.
Oh, all right. Justify that one, please.
It is to our local climate. It's to this part of the world. It is uniquely ANZ, if you will, it's really down here, and I think he's doing it right, and we do have everything we need here in Christchurch and Canterbury to make a world-class whiskey, and this is, and so kudos to them, and thank you again.
Yes, mate, big thanks to Antony for your time and your generosity. Now, if you enjoyed that conversation, please head over to your platform of choice, wherever you get your podcasts, leave a nice review, that'd be great. And if you've got questions, if there was something that you wanted to know more about, follow up on Distil-Nation@gmail.com or Distil-Nation again on your preferred social media platform. At some point it's going to find its way to us.
Yeah, and thank you so much again for your time, and thank you for listening, and cheers.
Cheers.